To all of our viewers, welcome to another Marriage Encounter. We are delighted to be with you on the airways of Second Advent Radio. And those of you who are joining via our various social media platforms, we say a hearty welcome. We are discussing marriage issues. This program is called the Marriage Encounter. We talk about all things marriage. And with me is Pastor Staton Adams, who is the Family Life Director at the South Leeward Conference of Seventh-day Adventists. We have been discussing the whole matter of boundaries and individuals who are resistant to boundaries. We are going to begin to bring this particular aspect of the discussion to a close. I'm not going to say we're going to close today, but we're going to begin to move towards a close. We want today to talk about that situation where you may want to refer to it as some specific context resistance. Individuals are resistant to boundaries. Generally very cooperative, very kind, very loving in most areas. But then there is this one area that is quote unquote off target. We'll talk about that. Before we do so, however, good day, Pastor Adams, and welcome.
Good day, Dr. Greene, and good day to all our viewing and listening audience. And we're delighted to have you join us as we're always happy to have you join us for this installment of Marriage Encounter. And we trust that you are doing well today and that you will benefit, no doubt, from our discussion this morning. So call somebody up as we normally tell you and let them know that Marriage Encounter is on and we are ready to go.
All right, so we are going to have a word of prayer. Shall we, Father, be with us as we go into today's discussion? We pray for your wisdom, your grace, and your guidance. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
Pastor Adams, it has been quite a discussion so far. We spent some time talking, especially last week, to issues relating to when there is a previous relationship and there are still lingering challenges, unresolved issues in that previous marriage, let's say, and you get into another marriage situation without completely resolving those issues. So those are issues, but on the other hand, we do have individuals who, as I said earlier in my introductory remarks, very cooperative, very kind, very loving, very, what you may say, open to boundaries, except that there is one area. So you may have a spouse who is great, except in this one area. And I'm going to use an example. Let's say the young man, deliberately saying the young man this time, his parents or his mother, let's say, does not respect the boundaries of his marriage. So she calls at any time she wants to, and whenever she calls, he responds, no matter what time, no matter what he's doing, so that he seems to give priority to his mother over his wife and over issues of the home. And the wife brings it up. And let's say this wife is a really, this family, in fact, is a really loving, caring family that the husband is almost the ideal husband, except in this one regard. But once she addresses this particular issue, it's as though this is an area keep out of the discussion. This is a specific context, and these are the kinds of things we're talking about today, Pastor Adams.
Yes, keep out of this area because it have the potential to cause fight and bad feelings between us. And I'm glad that you raised that one because that is a very real one. that is a very real one.
Indeed, it is.
Because that's why in the premarital counseling process, we talk about loyalty. You have to make a major switch. So this is not something you're making up there. That is a real classical one in which couples are affected. And really that is a symptom of a deeper problem. And maybe one party might not want to go there, right? Because you see, parenting is to bring us to a point of independence where we come to the level of maturity where we can leave and cleave. A man shall leave his father and mother. And one of the dangerous pitfalls, that saying that marriage is on its way to the cemetery, one of the 7 dangerous pitfalls is outside interference by in-laws, outlaws, or whoever laws, right? And so if you're not willing to make a major switch of allegiance, because your first commitment now, the first person after God is your husband or your wife now. And if you have not made that major switch of allegiance, and well, I'm saying that is a symptom of a deeper problem, because if we come from a family that has some issues of dysfunctionality, where there is what we call a system that is enmeshed instead of disenmeshed, that could be a lifelong issue with a couple, because if you come from a system where you have been enmeshed, it becomes difficult to cut loose from mother, father, brother, sisters. And that is why we were saying I think the last time or the previous program, that when these occurrences, when these things, when these type of situations, you need a clinical, not just an intervention, but you need somebody who is clinically trained to let you understand not just this issue, but what may be driving this issue, what may be driving this behavior, that you are more clingy to your family of origin, that you should cut
Now,
yourself away from now
now,
and
Pastor,
form your own biological family.
I want to interrupt you there because from time to time we use terminologies that some of our viewers and listeners don't quite understand. So you're using enmeshment versus disenmeshment. So I'm going to ask you, because I think this is, and I'm going there because I think this is really important. I mean, the example that I used is an important example.
Yeah,
It's
real one.
so important that we can spend all our time on this, although what we are seeking to get is the principle. But you introduce the term enmeshment versus disenmeshment, and I'm just going to ask you to expand on that a little bit, just so that somebody who is listening who may not quite understand what we're talking about, because of the importance of this.
Um, so enmeshed means that everybody is into everybody in that system. You don't have any space. You don't have your personal space. You don't have any individuality. That is an enmeshed system. All right. This enmeshed system, the family is closely knit. You're close to one another. They support you. They respect your opinion, your point of view. You have your own freedom to make your own decision. So in that system, they will let you go. In that enmeshed system, if you get out of there, it amongst the loyalty. And in that system, there will a lot of pain and hurt and family dysfunction. All those things go on in there and they stay in there. In the disenmeshed system, that is more semi-permeable. You can get out of that system, you can seek help, you can leave that system. People will support you, they will respect your decision, respect your choice. And so that when we say enmeshed system, we're meaning that everybody is into everybody. So when you leave that system, it amongst the disloyalty, right? Like something like disloyalty.
And
So
I want to add that, you know, during courtship, this is one of the issues that needs to be highlighted,
yes.
because, you know, a young man and a young woman may get married, and in the situation where, let's say the lady is from this enmeshed home, every Sabbath, everybody comes for lunch, you know, and because the family home is where everything happens. Now that may be good every now and then, but they get married, they never discuss this thing. And first Sabbath after the honeymoon, in fact, leading up, the gentleman may be saying, "Are we preparing for Sabbath?" And she may just say, "Okay, for Sabbath, mommy prepares for Sabbath," you know, in terms of food and that kind of thing. And her expectation is that this is where we have to go to eat every week. Now, he may not mind going there now and then, but he may want his own independence. He may want to have that environment where he can relate to his children and they can go for walks after lunch and that kind of thing. But she may be so enmeshed in this situation that breaking loose becomes a real challenge. And I'm just using that as an example of how
Yeah.
that can impact a worthwhile relationship developing.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, so we are saying that, yeah, the person might be a very kind, supported, loving spouse. Everything is going all right. You're sexually fulfilled and everything is going fine. But this one area, it's a great area. You don't want to go there. You don't want to talk. You don't want to. And I just put it mildly by giving an example because the enmeshment could go beyond that,
Mm.
where in-laws may not even respect your personal space and privacy. They will come barge in your room, your marital bedroom. I am a big grown man and I go to my sister's house. She's married. I don't go in her marital room. That's her marital bedroom. So you could go inside and no, no, no. I'm going in my niece's room or my nephew's room. I'm going and lie down on their bed and sleep there. Because I respect people's space, their boundaries. Well, I guess because of my understanding and my education and knowledge in this area. But I'm just trying to make the point that in that enmeshment system, people believe that they have the right, because it's my sister or my brother, I could come to this house and do what I want because it's my family.
Uh-huh.
No, 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 not at all.
Now we are, I mean, we used an example to illustrate something, and I'm glad in your response you said that generally the example I used was the situation where the young man just does not know how to differentiate between responding to his
Mhm.
mother versus responding to his wife or to some family issues. And in your response, one of the things you said was that there is a greater issue. And that's what I want to highlight, because this is an example. I could have used another example, but this is an example. What we notice when we have these situations where everything else is fine except this one area, whether it be a situation where a young man can't make that distinction between responding to his mother or to his wife, or it be a situation where, let's say, the man has some challenge with not respecting boundaries with sexual intercourse as it relates to his wife frequency and the like, or whether it be a situation with spending where, let's say, the man, and I've had some situations like this where the man does not know how to respect the family budget and to operate within. Could be the woman likewise. And so the habit of spending runs the family into financial crisis, and everything else may be fine except that one particular area. And the point we want to make here is that generally, when that one area becomes so guarded, so protected, you dare not talk about it, it generally is saying that there is something else to it. There is, that may be how it is being manifested, but there is more beyond.
Yeah, exactly. There's more to it. And sometimes, as we say in my local parlance, in my country of origin, there's more in the mortar than the pestle, right? In that situation.
Yeah, certainly. So that if you are experiencing that particular challenge in your relationship, it is it's not something that should be ignored. Let's put it that way. Ignoring it is almost like saying, I'm prepared to live with this for the rest of my life. But
Mhm.
nobody should live in a state of constant discomfort. That is not what marriage is all about. So it's an issue that needs to be addressed. And we will move into, maybe today, maybe next week, move into uh how do we respond to all of these challenges in a meaningful way. But I want to
But
highlight,
yeah, but
yes.
before you go there, we want to say that it, it is, I don't know if we are running ahead of myself in terms of the sequence of our presentations in this particular area, but you have to consider, while you are resisting in this area, you also have to consider the other person in this relationship with you, how seriously the person could be affected by this. Whatever is the resistance, is the point of resistance, that gray area that you don't want to touch, that you don't want to, the person could be actually pining from this, and you think that it is fine, it is not fine, it is not okay, right? So if this is brought to the fore, address it. and if you have to get an objective opinion point of view, and here's where the counselor comes in again, um, that is not a work for your spouse to do. That is a work for you to do, you see. Um, the person will support you, but it is your issue that you have to address, and you have to be honest about this. That yes, I sense the degree, and if because if you're not doing that, as we said in previous presentations, you are acting in an emotionally insensitive way. You see.
Certainly, and I'm glad you went back there because we have to learn to take responsibility. And when you find yourself protecting this sacred space, and I'm using that guardedly because it really is not sacred space, you know. You don't want anybody to touch you. You want to have your freedom to, let's say we use the example of spending. You want to have the freedom to spend when you want and how you want and what you want, even when you know that your finances are limited.
Yeah.
And your spouse begins to challenge you on that, you should not just say, listen, if you don't want that way, let me keep my money and you keep your money. That's a cop out. That is not what you want to do. If you don't deal with this, and you have to, you have to get to the point where you can tell your spouse, listen, this behavior is not lending towards a healthy marriage. And if you can't deal with your issue, if you can't get help, then we're going to have some problems in the relationship. You know, to leave people to do as they want, as they please, is really to affirm them in their bad behavior, which is not good for the relationship. And so I'm glad you went back there, because we have to learn to look inwards and to see how our actions, I must see as an individual, how my action is impacting the person on the other side of the table, my spouse, how it's impacting my marriage. Remember, we're operating from the perspective that your marriage must be priority. You have to value the needs of your marriage over your own individual personal needs. And so that is something to think about always.
Well, exactly. Exactly. And while you are continuing to resist, the person can be making, because I've seen that. And in fact, I literally had some cases like this where the person, otherwise nice, everything, but don't go this area, don't touch this area. But the other person was making up their mind to leave the marriage. And that other one didn't know, the spouse didn't know, right? You see, so it can affect. I'm trying to make the point that it can affect the other person to that degree, where they are making a decision to leave the marriage and you don't know.
Yeah, when your spouse becomes so utterly disgusted with a situation, and after several attempts that you still keep resisting, that may push your spouse to do something. Now, we are hoping that that doesn't happen, but that
Right.
may push your spouse to do something. And I've seen situations where spouses have gone ahead, have made arrangements, have made down payment on rental property and that kind of thing, and actually
Mhm.
move out, and the other person had no clue.
Mhm. Yeah.
But the
Yeah.
question is, what are some of the reasons why people may behave like this? Why people may guard these areas? One thing may be lack of experience, lack of information. Cloud and Townsend says that a spouse may simply have no clue as to how his or her behavior is impacting the other person. And,
Mhm.
and that's what we're speaking to right now. Give consideration, listen to your spouse. It
Mhm.
is, and I want you to comment on this a little bit, Pastor. It is important. I am positing that it is important that if your spouse has something to say, that you should listen to your spouse.
Not just listen, but validate. Because what makes it more dangerous if when the spouses begin to speak to you, you come across as though you are invalidated. This person is not willing to acknowledge at all that this position that I'm taking is affecting you or even affecting this relationship in this way, right? So we say, acknowledge, validate the opinion or the feeling. You may not agree, but you have to validate it and listen the person out and hear, right? And that is where, again, I am stressing, and so often I'm stressing it. If you do this in front of a professionally trained clinician, the person is going to talk to you on this very point of validating and acknowledging the point of view or the feelings of your spouse, and give you a different perspective why you should listen with a view to understanding, because that is what actually must take place in conflict. If I'm not understanding how my behavior or what I said have hurt you or affected you, then I will continue the behavior. So it is not just listening, but it's listening with a view to understanding the
Well,
whole
you know,
is.
so when I said listen just now, I was more referring to active listening, which includes all of that, because our hearers, those of you who are on listening right now, we have to remember that when we say listening, we are not just talking about hearing. We're talking about effective, meaningful communication, where you give attention, where you're not thinking about how you're going to respond after your spouse is finished. So you're not quick to respond. And as Pastor Adam said, your focus is in understanding what your partner is saying. So what you want to be able to do, if I may just expand on it a little bit, you want to be able to enter your partner's world, your spouse's world, and
Yes.
experience, see things from his or her perspective,
That is
to that
emphatic. That
point
is emphatic. That
where
is
you
emphatic
can really
listening.
appreciate why your
Mhm.
spouse has this particular perspective.
Yes, that is emphatic listening. You're listening from a position of empathy. If I am in this situation, how would I feel? How I'm trying to put myself and to experience the same feeling, the same hurt that my spouse is experiencing. Is emphatic. I'm putting myself in this space. And I think we referred to that in some previous program.
Yes, we did.
We
We
talked to
did.
the whole aspect of empathic listening. Yes.
And while I'm on this, let me just mention that again, this is a reminder because we also did share this, but we have to take into consideration that we may have new listeners. So it is important to consider that when you are communicating, when your spouse has something to say, this is how we started this discussion. When your spouse has something to say and you are listening to your spouse, it is important that you seek to appreciate the fact that you are not just allowing your spouse to express his or her opinion. You genuinely want to be able to appreciate their perspective. Because if your spouse is not happy, then you are not happy. You know, so when we talk about listening with empathy, when we talk about validating your spouse, when we talk about uh getting, you know, we say playback before feedback and those kinds of things. It is important for your marriage, for the longevity of your relationship, that you give the respect to your spouse as an equal partner in the relationship to be able to appreciate their perspective. Just thought I would add that.
Mhm. Because where there is invalidating, there is a significant amount of drifting. Let's say drifting, that the one person is beginning to drift away in emotional sense. Particularly, I was saying, well, you said that you weren't going to refer to let you use an example with the like with the spouse, the woman or the wife in this sense. But because I said that women and men, we relate in this context, we are relationally different, I just want to, if there are male listeners here, husbands on this platform, on this broadcast this morning, when a woman's feeling is consistently invalidated, if you're doing a lot of invalidating, there's an equal amount of drifting that is taking place. The woman begins to drift away emotionally because that's their world. We are wired differently. And Dr. Barbara DeAngelis opened my thinking and my reasoning to this area, where she spoke seriously to this particular area. Yeah, because the emotional matrix of women are a little different from us. We are wired differently.
And what you don't want to happen, you don't want your wife to become so disengaged that, you know, they're complete, because, you know,
When
all
they
these
become
things,
disengaged, they are really disengaged.
yeah, and these things lead, you know, I mean, if I may remember the name there now, talks about the four horsemen. Um,
Yes. Mhm.
um,
Four horsemen of the apocalypse.
yes,
Yes.
and
Dr. Gottman.
Gottman,
John
and
Gottman.
you don't want to get to the point where resentment sets in.
Mhm.
Because if when I see my spouse, I begin to resent her, I don't want to be around her, I don't appreciate, I don't respect her feelings, etc. That's a pretty dangerous place to be in your relationship.
Very dangerous, because resentment leads to aggression and hostility. And that is a serious, you really don't want to reach there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Definitely. Well, we're going to wrap up now. I want to quickly share one or two other reasons why this may happen. So an individual may have past hurts in his or her life that have not really been dealt with, so that, you know, a critical wife may have been shamed by her parents,
Hmm.
and and so she is still dealing with, and we have spent so much time talking about adverse childhood
Hmm.
situations that
Yes.
that can come over into the relationship. Another area maybe, and this one is big, we don't have a lot of time, Pastor, but character issues. You know, there may be real character flaws that may have been undercover, and this is now being revealed in some areas.
Hmm. And even if it is character issue, it is still character under construction, because that's the work of a lifetime.
Mhm.
And even inherited and cultivated tendencies, because I'm a Christian counselor from the Christian perspective, even if it's a character issue, we should not give up and throw up our hands and say, well, like people say, a bouncer on a day for a can't change. No, no, no. Even inherited and cultivated tendencies, the grace of God can bring us through. So there is power available.
That's right.
Particularly if there are people in Christian marriages here, well, any marriage. But I just want to let people know that we just can't blame, okay, because I born so I'm going to stay so. No, 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 no. We can get over inherited and cultivated tendencies by the grace of God.
And that's a good place to end today. Whatever the challenge is, if you have the right mindset, you can get help for your relationship. If you have questions, comments, or concerns, marriage encounter at slcadventist.org. That is marriage encounter at slcadventist.org. Until same time next week, may God's richest blessings be yours.
Ba-ba-ba-bum.